Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the U's Valor, watching the stars through the main screen. The ship moved slowly through empty space, far from Earth. His crew was doing their normal work, checking systems and watching for any problems. It was another quiet day in the Outer Rim territories. "Captain, I'm getting something strange on the communication array," said Lisa Park from her station. She was the ship's communications officer, always listening for signals from other ships. Our planet's Jake walked over to her station. "What kind of signal?" Lisa pressed some buttons, and the sound filled the bridge. It was weak and full of static, but they could hear voices speaking in a language the computer was trying to translate. The voices sounded scared and desperate. "It's coming from the Catherine Republic," Lisa said, looking at her screen. "The computer says it's a distress call, Captain. They're asking for help from anyone who can hear them." Jake knew about the Catherines. They were peaceful aliens who lived about 50 light years away. They spent their time making art and thinking about deep questions. They had never hurt anyone and didn't even have weapons. "Can you clean up the signal?" Jake asked. Lisa worked on her controls for a few minutes. Slowly, the voices became clearer. The computer translated their words into English, and what they heard made everyone on the bridge stop what they were doing. "This is Elder Vaitai of the Catherine Republic. We are under attack. The Vorthan Empire has surrounded our homeworld. They are destroying our cities from space. We have no weapons to fight them. We are sending this message to all civilizations in the galaxy. Please, if anyone can hear this, we need help. Our people are dying. We have only days before they destroy everything." The message repeated again and again. Jake felt his heart beating faster. The Vorthans were known across the galaxy as warriors who took over other planets. They had powerful ships and weapons, and they showed no mercy to anyone who got in there. "Way, how many Vorthan ships are we talking about?" Jake asked. Lisa checked her computer. "Intelligence reports say they usually travel in large fleets. Maybe 200 ships or more, Captain." Jake thought about this. The nearest human fleet was his own small group of 12 ships. They were exploration vessels, not warships, though. They did have some weapons for protection. 12 ships against 200 was not good odds. "Sir," said Lieutenant Commander Beth Rogers from the tactical station, "I'm reading other responses to the distress call. The Zilani Confederation and the Mordai Collective have both received the message. Are they sending help?" Jake asked. Beth checked her screen again. "No, sir. Both civilizations have sent replies saying they cannot help. They say the Vorthan fleet is too large, and the mission would be suicide." Jake walked to the center of the bridge and looked at the main screen again. He thought about the Catherines, peaceful people who had never hurt anyone, now facing complete destruction. He thought about his own crew and the other human ships in their small fleet. Most aliens in the galaxy called humans Deathworlders because Earth was such a dangerous planet. Other species came from worlds with gentle weather and friendly animals. Earth had storms, earthquakes, wild predators, and diseases. Humans had to be tough just to survive on their home planet. "Lisa, open a channel to Admiral Sullivan at Earth." "Command," Jake said. "Yes, sir." Lisa worked at her station. After a few moments, she nodded. "Channel open, Captain." The screen changed to show Admiral Kate Sullivan at her desk on Earth. She was a woman in her 50s with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had been in the space fleet for 30 years. "Captain Morrison, what can I do for you?" she asked. "Admiral, we've received a distress call from the Catherine Republic. They're under attack by a Vorthan fleet and facing extinction. We're the closest ships that can respond." Admiral Sullivan's face became serious. "How many Vorthan ships?" "Approximately 200, Admiral. We have 12 ships in our exploration group." The Admiral was quiet for a moment. Jake could see her thinking about the odds. On paper, it looked impossible. But Jake knew something that most aliens didn't understand about humans. Admiral, with respect, we're not like other species. We come from Earth. We know how to fight against bad odds. Admiral Sullivan smiled slightly. Captain, you're asking me to authorize an attack against overwhelming enemy forces to save a species we barely know. Yes, ma'am. How long until the Vorthans destroy the Catherine homeworld? Intelligence estimates 3 days at most, Admiral. Admiral Sullivan looked at something off-screen, probably checking fleet positions and resources. Finally, she looked back at Jake. Captain Morrison, you are authorized to proceed to the Catherine system with all possible speed. I'm sending orders to all human ships in your area to join you. We'll see what these Deathworlders can do when someone needs help. Thank you, Admiral. Captain, I want you to understand something. The galaxy is watching this. Every major civilization has heard that distress call. They all think we're going to die trying to help the Catherines. Maybe they're right. But if we're going to die, we'll die doing the right thing. The screen went dark. Jake turned to his crew. They were all looking at him, waiting for orders. Beth, plot a course for the Catherine system, maximum speed. Lisa, send messages to all human ships in this sector. Tell them to meet us there. Yes? Sir, both officers said dot as the Valor turned toward the Catherine system. Jake thought about what they were about to do. 12 human ships against 200 Vorthan warships. Most people would call it impossible. But humans had survived on Earth by doing impossible things when they had to. The bridge hummed with activity as his crew prepared for the journey. In 3 days, they would either save the Catherines or die trying. Jake had a feeling the galaxy was about to learn something new about humans. The news spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Within hours of the human fleet's departure, every major civilization knew that the Deathworlders had answered the Kethron distress call. Communication networks buzzed with the story, and most aliens had the same reaction. The humans were brave, but foolish. Dr. Alan Curtis sat in his laboratory aboard the U.S. Liberty, the flagship of the human fleet. He was Earth's best expert on alien species, and his job was to study how different civilizations behaved. Right now, he was listening to conversations from across the galaxy, and what he heard made him shake his head. They actually think they can win, said a voice from the Zelani Confederation. The computer translated the alien language into English for Alan to understand. 12 primitive ships against the entire Vorthan war fleet. It will be over in minutes. Another voice, this one from the Mordai Collective, was even less kind. The Deathworlders are known for their violence, but this is just stupid. They will all be dead before they can fire a single shot. Alan switched to another channel and heard representatives from the Galactic Trade Union talking about the situation. They were taking bets on how long the human fleet would survive. Most aliens were betting less than 10 minutes. Dr. Curtis, report to the bridge, came Admiral Sullivan's voice over the ship's communication system. Alan walked through the corridors of the Liberty. The ship was bigger than Captain Morrison's Valor, with more crew and better weapons. Admiral, Sullivan had arrived with 6 more ships, bringing their total fleet to 18 vessels. Still not enough against 200 Vorthan warships, but better than 12. When Alan reached the bridge, he found Admiral Sullivan talking with her officers. She looked up when he entered. Doctor, I need to know what the galaxy thinks about our mission. Are other civilizations planning to help us? Alan pulled out his datapad and showed her the information he had collected. Admiral, I'm afraid the answer is no. Every major power has refused to send ships. They all think we're going to lose badly. What about smaller civilizations? Maybe they have ships that could help? Most of them are too scared of the Vorthans to do anything. A few have wished us luck, But that's all. Admiral Sullivan nodded. She had expected this answer. What are they saying about us specifically? Well, Admiral, they're calling us brave but stupid. Many aliens think humans are too violent and don't understand proper military strategy. They say we're rushing into battle without thinking. Lieutenant Commander Beth Rogers, who had transferred to the Liberty for the mission, looked up from her tactical station. Admiral, we're receiving a message from the Vorthan fleet. They want to talk to us. Put it on screen, Admiral Sullivan said. The main screen showed a large alien with gray skin and red eyes. This was Commander Ziktar of the Vorthan Empire, the leader of the fleet attacking the Kethrans. He looked at the humans with what seemed like amusement. I am Commander Ziktar. I understand that a small group of Deathworlders is coming to fight. U.S., this is very entertaining. We have destroyed many civilizations, but none have been foolish enough to attack us with such few ships. Admiral Sullivan stepped forward. Commander, we're here to protect the Kethrans. If you leave their system, now there won't be any fighting. Ziktar laughed, a harsh sound that made everyone on the bridge uncomfortable. Admiral, you have 18 ships. We have 230. Your weapons are primitive compared to ours. Your ships are small. This will not be a battle. It will be target practice. We'll see about that, Admiral Sullivan said calmly. Yes, we will. The galaxy is watching, Admiral. When we destroy your fleet, everyone will know what happens to those who challenge the Vorthan Empire. You have made your species famous for dying stupidly. The screen went dark. The bridge was quiet for a moment. Well, said Admiral Sullivan, at least we know they're confident. Sometimes that can be a weakness. Dr. Curtis looked at his data pad again. More messages were coming in from across the galaxy. Some civilizations were starting to broadcast the upcoming battle as entertainment. The Nexari Entertainment Network was advertising it as the shortest space battle in galactic history. Admiral, Alan said, I'm reading something interesting. Some aliens are calling this the first time in 1,000 years that anyone has challenged the Vorthans directly. Most civilizations just surrender when the Vorthans show up. That explains why they're so confident, said Beth Rogers. They're not used to anyone fighting back. The fleet continued toward the Kethran system. During the journey, more human ships joined them from other parts of the galaxy. Captain Morrison's group met up with Admiral Sullivan's fleet, and together they picked up 4 more exploration vessels. Their final count was 22 ships against the Vorthan Armada. 2 days after leaving Earth's space, they received another transmission from the Kethran homeworld. This time it was Elder Veitai himself, the leader of the Kethran people. Human fleet, this is Elder Veitai. We are grateful that you have come to help us, but we fear for your safety. The Vorthans have already destroyed 3 of our cities. Their ships are very powerful, and they have many more vessels than you do. Admiral Sullivan answered personally. Elder Veitai, we understand the danger, but humans don't abandon people who need help. We're coming whether the odds are good or bad. The galaxy says you will lose quickly. They say your ships are too weak, and your crews are not trained for this kind of battle. Elder, the galaxy doesn't know humans very well. We come from a planet that tried to kill us every day. We learned to survive by fighting smart, not by having the biggest weapons. I hope you are right, Admiral. My people are dying, and you are our only hope. As the human fleet approached the edge of the Kethran system, Dr. Curtis detected hundreds of communication signals from across the galaxy. Aliens everywhere were preparing to watch what they expected to be a very short battle. It's like a galactic television show, Alan told Admiral Sullivan. Everyone is watching to see the Deathworlders get destroyed. Admiral Sullivan looked at the main screen, where they could now see the distant stars of the Kethran system. Well then, Doctor, Let's give them a show they'll never forget. The fleet moved forward. 22 human ships against impossible odds, while the entire galaxy watched and waited for their destruction. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Catherine system. Captain Jake Morrison looked at his main screen and saw a sight that would have scared most civilizations into running away. 230 Vorthen. Warships hung in space around Kethra Prime like angry wasps around their nest. The Vorthen ships were huge, each one twice the size of the largest human vessel. They had thick armor and massive weapons that could destroy a city with one shot. Bright flashes of light came from the planet's surface as the Vorthens continued bombing Kethron cities. Admiral Sullivan to all ships, came the voice over the communication system. Remember your training. We're not here to match their firepower. We're here to be smarter and faster than they are. Captain Morrison turned to his tactical officer. Beth, what do our sensors show? Lieutenant Commander Beth Rogers studied her screen carefully. The Vorthen ships are in a standard defensive formation around the planet. They're not moving much, just staying in position to block any rescue attempts. They think we'll attack head-on, like most species do. That's their first mistake, Morrison said with a slight smile. Chief Engineer Carl Stone spoke up from his station. Captain, I can push our engines 20% beyond normal limits. It'll be rough on the crew, but we can handle it. Morrison nodded. Humans could survive forces that would kill most aliens. Their bodies were built for the harsh conditions of Earth, where gravity was stronger and the environment was more dangerous than most worlds in the galaxy. All ships, this is Admiral Sullivan. Execute Plan Alpha. Remember, we're not trying to destroy all their ships. We just need to break their formation and save the Kethrans. The human fleet split into 3 groups. Captain Morrison led one group of 8 ships toward the left side of the Vorthen formation. Commander Tony Walsh took 6 ships to the right. Admiral Sullivan kept 8 ships in the center, including the Liberty with its heavier weapons. Here we go, Morrison said to his crew. Carl, give me everything the engines have got. The U's Valor shot forward at a speed that surprised the Vorthens. The human ship was moving so fast that it looked like a streak of light racing toward the enemy formation. The other ships in Morrison's group followed close behind. Incoming message from the Vorthen fleet, reported Communications Officer Lisa. Park, put it on speaker, Morrison ordered. Commander Zektar's voice filled the bridge, sounding confused and angry. What are you doing? That speed will kill your crew. Morrison didn't answer. Instead, he ordered his ship to dive toward Kethra, Prime's largest moon. The gravity from the moon grabbed the Valor and pulled it even faster, using the moon like a slingshot. The ship was moving so fast now that the crew felt pressed into their seats by enormous force. On most alien ships, the crew would have been knocked unconscious or killed by this kind of acceleration. But humans had evolved on a heavy world, and their bodies could handle much more punishment than other species. Captain, we're pulling 8 times Earth gravity. Carl Stone shouted over the noise of the straining engines. I know. Morrison shouted back, his voice tight but still in control. Stay with it. The Valor and its group came around the moon like bullets fired from a giant gun. They were now moving faster than any ship the Vorthens had ever seen, racing directly toward the side of the enemy formation. At the same time, Commander Walsh's group was doing something equally impossible on the other side. They were diving straight down toward the planet, using Kethra Prime's gravity to increase their speed while pulling maneuvers that should have torn their ships apart. Lieutenant Sam Torres, the youngest pilot in the fleet, was leading a squadron of small fighter craft in an attack that looked like pure suicide. His ships flew directly at the largest Vorthen vessel, not slowing down or changing course. Those humans are insane. came a panicked voice from the Vorthan communication channels. "They're going to crash right into us." At the last possible second, Torres and his pilots pulled their ships up and away from the Vorthan vessel, but not before firing all their weapons at point-blank range. The Vorthan ship's shields couldn't handle weapons fired from so close, and explosions bloomed across its hull dot. The Vorthan formation was breaking apart. Their ships had been positioned to fight enemies who followed normal battle rules, not opponents who flew like they had nothing to lose. The human ships were everywhere at once, moving too fast for the Vorthans to target properly. "Direct hit on Vorthan Cruiser 7, reported Beth Rogers from the Valor's tactical station. "Their shields are down." Morrison's group swept through the Vorthan left flank like sharks through a school of fish. The human ships were smaller and faster, and their crews could handle maneuvers that would kill most aliens. They struck hard and moved away before the Vorthans could respond. Admiral Sullivan's center group was attacking the main Vorthan force head-on, but not in the way the enemy expected. The Liberty and its escorts were spinning and rolling as they advanced, making them almost impossible to hit with the Vorthan's heavy weapons. "Admiral, we're getting reports from across the galaxy," Dr. Alan Curtis called out from his station on the Liberty. "The aliens watching this battle can't believe what they're seeing. They're calling our tactics impossible." "Good," Admiral Sullivan replied, watching her tactical display as human ships danced through the Vorthan formation. Let them learn something new about humans. The battle was becoming chaos. Vorthan ships were trying to turn and face opponents who moved too fast and changed direction too quickly. Several alien vessels had already been destroyed or badly damaged, while the human fleet was still intact. Commander Zektar's voice came over the communication channels again, but this time he sounded worried instead of confident. "How are they? Moving like that? Their crews should be dead." Captain Morrison finally answered him. "Commander, you made one big mistake. You thought we were like other species. We're not. We come from a world that tried to kill us every day. This is just another Tuesday for us." The human fleet continued its deadly dance through the Vorthan formation. Ships that had seemed impossible to defeat minutes ago were now retreating or calling for help. The galaxy was watching in amazement as 22 human vessels outfought an enemy fleet 10 times their size. But the battle was far from over, and the Vorthans were beginning to realize they were fighting something they had never encountered before. The battle had been going on for 2 hours, and the galaxy was watching something they had never seen before. Human ships continued to move through the Vorthan formation like deadly ghosts, striking fast and disappearing before the enemy could fight back. But now something even more shocking was about to happen. Communications Officer Ryan Bell, aboard the UES Thunder, was listening to Vorthan radio channels when he heard something that made his blood run cold. The enemy was no longer talking about an easy victory. Instead, their voices were full of fear. "They're not civilized," shouted one Vorthan captain to another. "They fight like wild animals." "Command, we need help," came another panicked voice. "These humans don't follow any rules of war. They're attacking our damaged ships instead of letting them surrender." Ryan quickly sent this information to all human ships. The Vorthans were starting to understand that they weren't fighting another normal galactic civilization. They were fighting predators from a world that had made killing an art form. Captain Morrison received Ryan's report just as his ship was approaching a damaged Vorthan vessel. The enemy ship was trying to retreat, its engines smoking and its weapons offline. In normal galactic warfare, attacking a helpless ship was considered bad behavior. But humans had different rules. "Target their engine section," Morrison ordered Beth Rogers. "Make sure they can't run away." "Sir, they're signaling surrender," Lisa Park reported from her communications station. "They can surrender after they "Stop being a threat to the Kethrons," Morrison replied coldly. The Valor's weapons fired, and the Vorthen ship's engines exploded. The vessel was now completely helpless, floating in space like a piece of metal junk. Morrison's ship moved on to find its next target. This was happening all across the battlefield. Human ships were not accepting surrenders or showing mercy to enemies who were still capable of fighting. To the watching galaxy, this looked like savage behavior. But to humans, it was just common sense. You don't let dangerous enemies keep their weapons. Meanwhile, something even more terrifying was happening on the ships where humans and Vorthens met face to face. Colonel Nina Hayes was leading a boarding party onto a Vorthen command ship that had been disabled by fighter attacks. The airlock opened, and Nina led her Marines into the enemy vessel. The Vorthens inside had weapons and armor, but they had never fought against humans in close combat. What happened next shocked everyone who saw it. The Vorthens tried to form a defensive line in their ship's corridor. They had energy weapons that could kill from a distance, and they thought this would keep the humans away. But Nina and her Marines did something that no civilized species had done in 1,000 years. They charged directly at the enemy weapons. Human soldiers ran through the Vorthen weapon fire, some getting hit, but still moving forward. When they reached the enemy line, they began fighting with their hands and simple tools. The Vorthens discovered that their advanced armor was useless against humans who grabbed them and threw them against walls. "This is impossible," one Vorthen soldier screamed into his communicator. "They're fighting without weapons. They're using their bare hands." Nina Hayes grabbed a Vorthen warrior who was twice her size and used a fighting technique that would have impressed her ancestors on Earth. The alien went down hard, unconscious before he hit the floor. Other Marines were doing the same thing throughout the ship. Most galactic species had forgotten how to fight with their bodies. They used technology for everything and had become weak over millions of years of comfortable living. But humans still remembered how to hunt, how to kill, and how to survive using nothing but their natural abilities. Back in space, Admiral Sullivan was preparing for the final phase of the battle. The Vorthen fleet was scattered and confused, but they still had more ships than the humans. It was time to use a tactic that no other species would even consider. "All ships, this is Admiral Sullivan. Execute Terran Gambit on my mark." "Captain." Morrison knew what this meant, and it made him smile grimly. The Terran Gambit was a maneuver that only humans would be crazy enough to attempt. It involved letting the enemy surround you completely, then using their own positions against them. All human ships, fall back to the center of the Vorthen formation. Make them think we're retreating. The human fleet began moving toward the middle of the enemy formation, and the Vorthens thought they finally had their chance for victory. Vorthen ships closed in from all directions, forming a perfect sphere around the smaller human force. Now they're trapped. Commander Ziktar announced to his fleet, "All ships fire at will." But Admiral Sullivan was counting on this reaction. "All ships, emergency acceleration straight down toward the planet. Maximum power. 22 human." Ships suddenly dropped toward Kethra Prime at speeds that should have killed their crews. The Vorthens, arranged in a sphere around them, found themselves firing at empty space while human vessels disappeared toward the planet below. But this was only the first part of the Terran Gambit. As the human ships approached the planet's atmosphere, they used Kethra Prime's gravity to slingshot themselves back up and out. But now they were moving at incredible speed and coming from a direction the Vorthens never expected. The human fleet shot up through the middle of the Vorthen formation, like a bullet through paper. Ships that had been arranged to trap the humans were now perfectly positioned to be destroyed by the high-speed attack. Explosions bloomed throughout the Vorthen fleet as human weapons fired at point-blank range into enemy ships that couldn't move out of the way fast enough. The carefully organized Vorthen formation became a field of wreckage in less than 5 minutes. "Retreat! All ships retreat!" came Commander Ziktar's panicked voice over the communication channels. "These humans are not civilized beings. They're apex predators from a nightmare world." The surviving Vorthen ships began fleeing the system as fast as their engines could carry them. Behind them, they left nearly 60% of their fleet. As burning wreckage floating in space around Kethra Prime, the human fleet regrouped near the planet, all 22 ships still intact. They had lost some crew members and taken damage, but they had won a victory that the galaxy thought was impossible. Dr. Alan Curtis was monitoring communications from across the galaxy, and what he heard made him realize that everything had changed. "Forever, the Deathworlders have revealed their true nature," said a frightened voice from the Zilani Confederation. "They're not just another species. They're the apex predators of the galaxy, and we never knew it." 3 days after the battle, the human fleet was still in orbit around Kethra Prime. The planet's surface showed the terrible damage from Vorthen bombing, but the cities that remained were safe now. Elder Vetai had invited the human leaders to visit his world, though his people were still afraid of their saviors. Ambassador Helen Clark arrived on a diplomatic ship from Earth. She was a calm woman with gray hair, who had spent years learning how to talk with alien species. But even she had never faced a situation like this one. "Elder Vetai," Helen said as she met the Kethrine leader in his damaged city, "my people are sorry for the destruction your world has suffered. We came as quickly as we could." The Elder was a tall, thin alien with blue skin and large eyes. His people looked fragile compared to humans, like living artwork made of crystal and light. He studied Helen carefully before speaking. "Ambassador Clark, we are grateful that you saved us. But we must be honest, your people frighten us. We watched the battle recordings. Humans fight in ways we have never seen before." Helen nodded. She had expected this reaction. "Elder, I understand your fear. Humans come from a dangerous world, and we had to become dangerous to survive on it. But please remember, we chose to use our abilities to protect you, not to hurt you." "Yes," the Elder said slowly. "This is what gives us hope. You could have taken our world for yourselves after defeating the Vorthens. Instead, you are helping. You as we build. Perhaps there is wisdom in having such powerful protectors." While Helen worked on diplomacy, Admiral Sullivan was dealing with a flood of messages from across the galaxy. Every major civilization wanted to talk to the humans immediately. Her communication officer had counted over 200 requests for meetings in just the first day after the battle. "Admiral," Dr. Alan Curtis reported from his station, "the Zilani Confederation is requesting an emergency meeting. They want to discuss a mutual defense treaty." "What about the Mordai Collective?" Admiral Sullivan asked. "They're offering to share their advanced technology with us in exchange for protection from hostile species. The trade union wants to make Earth their primary security partner. Even small civilizations are asking if we'll protect their trade." "Roots." Admiral Sullivan looked at the list of requests on her screen. Before the battle, most of these species had ignored humans or called them primitive. Now, everyone wanted to be their friend. "There's something else, Admiral," Alan continued. "We're getting reports that several aggressive species have suddenly become much more peaceful. The Krill raiders stopped attacking merchant ships. The savage tribes have withdrawn from disputed territories. Word is spreading that humans will protect innocent species." The most surprising message came from the Vorthen Empire itself. Commander Ziktar, who had been so confident before the battle, sent a formal communication to Admiral Sullivan. "Admiral Sullivan of the human fleet," his message began, "the Vorthen Empire formally requests peace talks with your species. We wish to end all hostilities and establish friendly relations. We have learned that humans are far more powerful than we realized. Admiral Sullivan shared this message with Captain Morrison, who was still aboard the Valor. "Jake, what do you think about Vorthen peace talks?" Morrison appeared on her screen from his ship's bridge. "Admiral, I think they're scared. They probably expected to lose a few ships and win easily. Instead, we destroyed more than half their fleet without losing a single vessel. The question is whether we can trust them to keep a peace agreement. I think we can, as long as they believe we'll come after them if they break it. Fear can be a good foundation for peace, if it's the right kind of fear." Back on Earth, the news of the victory had created a sensation. Humans had always known they were tougher than most aliens, but they hadn't realized just how much of an advantage this gave them in space warfare. Now the whole galaxy was calling them the apex predators of known space. Captain Morrison received a personal message from his family on Earth. His sister wrote, "Jake, the whole planet is talking about what you did. People are proud, but also a little scared. Are we really as dangerous as the aliens say we are?" Morrison thought about this question for a long time before answering. "We're as dangerous as we need to be to protect the people we care about. The galaxy is learning that. Being dangerous and being evil are not the same thing." A week later, Admiral Sullivan called a meeting of all human ship captains in the system. She had received new orders from Earth Command, and the news would change everything. "Captains," she announced, "Earth has decided to establish the Terran Protection Fleet. Our job will be to protect peaceful species from aggressive ones. Captain Morrison, you'll be the first commander of this new fleet." Morrison felt the weight of this responsibility. "Admiral, are we ready to become the galaxy's police force?" "Jake, we don't have a choice. Every species in the galaxy now knows what we can do. Some of them are scared of us, others want our protection, and a few are angry that we've upset the old order. But one thing is clear, the galaxy will never be the same." Dr. Curtis had been monitoring galactic communications during the meeting. "Admiral, I'm reading something interesting. The galactic news networks are calling the battle the day the Predators revealed themselves. But they're also calling it the day the galaxy became safer." Admiral Sullivan smiled at this. "Doctor, I think that's exactly right. The galaxy is safer now because the bullies know there's someone who will stop them." 6 months later, human ships were patrolling trade routes throughout the galaxy. Pirates had mostly disappeared, and aggressive species were being much more careful about attacking their neighbors. The Kethrans had become humanity's closest allies, and their world was rebuilding with human help. Elder Vetai sent a message to Earth that was broadcast across the galaxy. "The humans saved our species when no one else would help. They showed us that true strength comes from protecting those who cannot protect themselves. We are honored to call them friends." Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of his new flagship, watching a convoy of merchant ships pass safely through what used to be dangerous space. His communication officer, Lisa Park, who had stayed with him throughout his promotion, looked up from her station. "Captain, we're receiving a distress call from the Outer Rim. A species called the Gentle Ones is under attack by raiders." Morrison smiled and turned to his crew. "Well, you heard her. Set course for the Outer Rim. Let's go. Remind the galaxy that when someone sends an SOS, they want the Deathworlders to hear it first." The human fleet jumped into faster-than-light travel, heading toward another species that needed help. Behind them, the galaxy continued its business in peace, knowing that somewhere in the darkness between the stars, the apex predators of Earth were watching and waiting to protect those who could not protect themselves.